Welcome to The Valley's Voice, Arizona Live's Legal Truths.
Welcome to The Valley's Voice, Arizona Live's Legal Truths, and Travis Meltzer, founding and managing attorney at Valley Injury Law. Travis is a practicing attorney in both Arizona and Nevada who began his career in insurance defense before founding his own firm to advocate for injured individuals. His team prioritizes quality over quantity to give every client personalized legal support from start to finish. I'm Lisa Mosbey, and today we're talking about how injury cases are actually valued, what drives compensation, and why no two claims are exactly alike. Welcome, Travis. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa.
Travis, to start, can you explain how personal injury cases are valued?
Yeah, absolutely. Ultimately, every case is different, right? And I'm sure we'll get to that later, but every case has its own little nuances. But ultimately, it's a building block system, I call it. It's the quality of injuries. So is it just bruises, or does your back hurt, or is it broken bones, surgery? So it's the quality of injuries. Then it's the total of medical bills. So total cost of medical care associated with the accident. And then that term that everybody knows, but nobody really knows the meaning of, pain and suffering. What does that really mean? And that a lot of little factors. Ultimately, how long was the treatment? What kind of treatment? Kind of going back to what I said, is it just physical therapy, or are there significant surgeries that you have to endure? So ultimately, it's the length of care, and then the type of care is a big part of pain and suffering, and how it affected your life. Are you able to go to work? Are you able to pick up your kids? Are you able to tie your shoes? So ultimately, there's tons of factors, and every little thing's different, but ultimately it's that building blocks where it's the cost of medical care, the quality of injuries or type of injuries, type of care, and then length of care, including how it affected your life and your day-to-day activities.
Sure. And just out of curiosity, do medical bills influence what a personal injury case is worth?
So it really does. Ultimately, that's when I'm discussing a case at the end of everything. Once we get all those medical bills, that's the best way to describe it to a client that hasn't done this very often. It's what the value starts at, because ultimately that is very obvious loss. That is that cost of that care. You had to get it, whether it's through credit cards or health insurance. That is the cost to the client. And ultimately, that's kind of the foundation and where you build off of value. So ultimately, that cost of your medical care is really where the value starts for us.
And then why is it that two people with seemingly similar accidents can end up with very different settlement values?
Yeah, and it's funny that that question comes up so much, and I'm sure everybody that's seeing this, listening to this, or been through an accident, that is always something that comes up. And it's an interesting response that I always give people, because ultimately everybody is different. Every single person, their body is different. So you could go through the exact same accident as somebody else, and your body reacts differently. So ultimately, how it affects your body is more so the determining factor as opposed to the accident itself. So if you're rear-ended, much like anybody else is rear-ended, Lisa, my body might adjust differently. I might be sitting differently. I might be holding the steering wheel a little differently. Every little factor that goes into the accident can potentially change not only the value, but the injuries and how your body reacts to those types of forces. So it's always really difficult to say, hey, my sister got rear-ended and she got 20 grand. Why am I only getting one? So ultimately, it's hard to put every type of case into that funnel. And the best thing I could tell clients is stay off the internet if you can. Don't Google your injuries, because ultimately you're going to see something, because the only thing that gets posted is the high end or the people that are frustrated. So you don't really get that average case. So ultimately, everybody's different. So how your body is in the accident, slip and fall, whatever ended up happening, is very important to the overall outcome of the case.
And I imagine the investigators, the insurance companies, the jury, if you go to trial, I can't even imagine all the different factors that go into these. In fact, what factors besides medical treatment can significantly change what a case is worth?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ultimately, what people will look at is, the first thing that comes to mind, especially juries in Arizona and Nevada, and candidly in the new age of technology and everybody has their phones, how the vehicle, just simply, we do more than just vehicles, and obviously that's determining factor. But when you look at a vehicle, if the damage of the vehicle is significant, that can drastically change the value of your case. Because even though your body is injured and the vehicle doesn't look hurt, that could hurt you, despite, or hurt the value of the case, despite your injuries, despite what doctors say, despite what your body's telling you. The vehicle, how it looks to a jury, because ultimately we are visual creatures, and especially in the day and age of the internet, people want to see, unfortunately, big damages to award big awards to people. So if your car isn't, quote unquote, as messed up as you think it should be, that could hurt your case. And another item that I see all the time is people posting on the internet what they're doing. And that is what investigators for insurance companies are going to look. And if you're complaining, or somebody's complaining of a back injury, and you went to, your cousin's pool party and did a backflip off of the the side of the pool, or jumped into the pool, that is something that will destroy your case, because ultimately we're here to show that you were hurt. And if there is a video out there that shows you're not, that is something that can really change the outcome of your case. So ultimately, don't do that. But if you are, don't record it and don't post it. So it's just all, so there are lots of little things that can go into it, but ultimately just try to stay in your lane, get better. Don't post about it. Don't say things like that. But really, ultimately, what comes down to is what we can prove. And those big damages help if the car looks as messed up as we would like it to be.
Yeah, and you mentioned pain and suffering a number of times. How do pain and suffering in day-to-day life changes, how do those things factor into a case when there's no bill attached to them?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, absolutely. And really, it's those things that you think you can just do. I always liken it to people where you don't understand how much you use your neck until you sleep wrong. And you're turning, you can't do anything, you slept on it wrong. So pain and suffering is similar to that, is the extent where your day-to-day activities, you tie your shoes, you help your kids get dressed, you get dressed. If that is more difficult than it was prior to the incident, that is a factor of pain and suffering. So anything that the accident changed, usually negatively, I guess there are some things that could be positive in a weird sense, but usually affected your life and changed you. I know I'm sure there's a story out there, somebody's going to comment and say, hey, I had this one time, but ultimately anything that is adjusted negatively. So whether you can't go play softball, or you can't go run, or you can't go to work, or you're having a hard time sitting for a while or standing for a while, it's little things of your everyday life. So ultimately what we try to do, at least at my firm, is we have our clients journal. We have an addition to our case management software where they can journal and say, hey, today I had a really hard time tying my shoes. So just little things like that can really adjust not only the value, but it creates that narrative, and it creates the story of somebody's injury that we can really express, and it puts more of a personal face onto an accident, particularly for these insurance companies.
How reliable are online settlement calculators? You mentioned don't go adding it up, don't go looking at the website, or the stories that someone else got in their case. How reliable is that information? How would you classify it?
I would never say 0%, but pretty damn close. And it's just
Okay.
because everybody's so different. I mean, I'm sure there are things, I can compare my life to somebody that's way better off than me, and I could say, why isn't my life like that? But it doesn't make my life that, if that makes sense. Where it's more of a sense where what happened to Lisa, even though Travis and Lisa were in the same accident, Lisa's back could have hurt for years before Travis's did, or before the accident did. So there's all these little factors that those calculators, that those little websites, those stories that everybody sees, honestly, those don't take into account, because those little things may be the difference, and maybe a huge difference in terms of the value of the case. I mean, there could be somebody that says they have a hard time sitting, and both people have a hard time sitting. One person works, one person doesn't, and one person has a desk job that they can't sit for long periods of time now, and they can't go to work as much. So it's little things that are left out of the stories, because what's personal or special or unique to some person might not be unique to the others, and they might even leave it out of the story because it's not beneficial to them either. So when it comes to those calculators, there's some little bit of science behind it, but ultimately they are fed into other law firms. And those are the people that will call you back and give you the evaluation anyway. So ultimately, if you're concerned, just call an attorney and get multiple opinions if you don't like one of them. That's ultimately what it comes down to. But when you Google stuff or use AI and ChatGPT, what's my case worth? You can coach it to kind of just give it what you want, give you what you want. So ultimately, yeah, it's just such a skewed issue. So I would just say talk to multiple attorneys if you're really concerned about your case value.
And then can someone hurt the value of their case after an accident, even if fault isn't really being argued?
Yeah, so there are a few. We touched on it a little bit. Obviously, the extreme sense where you're jumping off of the diving board into a pool and those kind of things. You can either also, I've had clients go do crazy things, for lack of a better phrase, and re-injure themselves doing something else. So that can put a big kibosh because then the insurance companies are just going to blame that injury, not the accident. So it's really just be careful. I know it's kind of a weird line to walk. I'm not telling clients to not live their lives, but just be careful because if you're really hurt, you shouldn't probably be putting yourself in harm's way. Another, the big, I would say the third major item is not treating. That is the biggest item where we understand, life happens. Life's busy. It's hard to make appointments. It's hard to do those things. But as I said at the beginning of our conversation, Lisa, where the cost of medical care and the length of care is a pretty large determining factor of the value of your case. So if you decide to not treat and then are looking for your injuries to be recovered or paid for, it's very difficult for me as the attorney to argue that you actually were hurt because you didn't treat. And I don't have a doctor's opinion. I don't have at least a small little zip note that says, hey, he's hurt because of this. It's because of this car accident. This is what I'd recommend, plan of care. So we understand life happens. All personal injury attorneys will say that. We do. But ultimately, in order to continue the case and make sure that you, or as a potential client, are getting the value you deserve, you need to treat. Because ultimately, we will need a medical opinion and medical showing and medical proof that you not only had the injury, you treated for it, and the length of time you did so.
Definitely get checked. So, Travis, from your defense background, what are insurance companies looking at behind the scenes when deciding what they're willing to offer?
So that's actually a great question. And ultimately, with insurance companies, they have been light years ahead of personal injury space, whether it comes to AI or programs behind the scenes where they'll sit and analyze every single factor of your case. What is the local general payout in your county, even? And they have it all in this massive database. Insurance companies tend to share data between each other, too. So there is a huge, or at least there was, a massive disadvantage when it came to the technology that insurance companies were using and the technology that PI firms were using. That has now leveled out with the systems that we use. I know a lot of local firms here in Arizona use, and with local, I think they're called justice associations. There's all kinds of versions of that in every jurisdiction where personal injury attorneys now talk. We all talk to each other. So we're able to say, hey, here's what a client does. Here's my case, XYZ. But what insurance companies have always done is they have the money, right? So they have the technology, they have the ability to just hire anyone, and they will look into your background, whether that's past accidents, past injuries, and they'll do a deep dive into your social media. They will. I've had clients been followed by investigators during cases just to see if they were hurt. So they will literally stop at nothing if it saves them $1 sometimes. And so that's why, in general, it's important to get an attorney, because ultimately it's a big pile of money that is willing to just pay everything to not pay you anything. And it's an interesting dichotomy. And I saw it when I was on the defense side, where ultimately, even as a defense attorney, you kind of answered to the insurance company. It wasn't necessarily your client that you were defending. So it puts the defense attorney, in this weird, but what if mommy and daddy don't agree kind of thing. So once the insurance company does what it does, they have no obligation, or they at least appear to be no obligation to their own client. Sometimes it is simply to protect their money and to diminish your claim. So really, it's just be very careful. But what it comes down to is it's that social media is big, and careful who you talk to. Just if you have a question, talk to your attorney. That's ultimately what it'll do, because people go down these rabbit holes. They'll go to those calculators. They'll go talk to friends. They'll post on social media. Hey, I was just in an accident. This is what they offered. Is that okay? And it's just little things like that. Yeah, wild to me. But ultimately, the insurance company has so much money at their disposal. If they wanted to find something out, they probably can. So just try to be careful and talk to your attorney if you're ever concerned about anything.
And Travis, if someone wants a realistic sense of what their case may be worth, what information matters most early on?
Yeah, ultimately, it's what type of injuries. Be honest with your provider and your attorney. That's probably the biggest piece of advice I can give. And what that means is you are the best advocate for your care. Do not rely on your attorney to advocate for your care. Now, most attorneys will make recommendations or make referrals. We don't do that, in the sense of we're not doctors. You go do your thing, but advocate, because it's interesting to see clients sometimes. I mean, people go to doctors all the time, irrelevant whether it's related to accidents, but they do go to doctors. And I try to tell clients that this is no different when you're at your doctor's office. You tell them what's wrong and why it's like that, or at least why you think, and they'll give you their opinion. It shouldn't be any different here. So ultimately, advocating for your care and your own health is huge. Be honest. What's hurting? Where is it hurting? Why do you think it's hurting? Give them your opinion. It's no different than when you go to the doctor for a cold. Really, you're going to tell them, I don't feel good. I have a fever. Here's when it started. What do you guys think? The difference here is it's a car accident most of the time. Hey, my neck hurts. It happened in a car accident. What do you think I should do? So ultimately, I'm not in there with their doctors. I'm not with clients. So that is the biggest piece of advice I can give them. And then the standard, take pictures of your car. Make sure you're taking pictures of the car right at the scene if you can. Take pictures of the other vehicle. That's big, because ultimately, if you don't get it, sometimes that car's gone. Sometimes they'll throw it away. Sometimes they'll fix it, and you'll never see it in that state again. So those two, especially in the beginning, those are very big things when it comes to the building of a case.
Sure. I'm going to leave it there today. Thank you so much for your insights. This has been excellent.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. That's it for today's episode of The Valley's Voice, Arizona Live's Legal Truths and Travis Meltzer. If you've been injured and want a clearer understanding of what your case may actually involve, reach out to Travis and the team at Valley Injury Law for a free consultation at azvalleyinjurylaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and we'll see you next time. Come on back.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.